This video will show you how to manage your NetSuite vendor price list with CloudExtend Excel Data Management for NetSuite. In order for you to update your vendor list pricing, you will need to create an inventory item template. And the reason why we have to create an inventory item template is due to the fact that SOAP Web Services does not support item sublists within the vendor record. So when you create a template, you can select either create new records or search and download. But for demo purposes, I've already created a template. So I'm going to go to my menu and then I'm going to go my templates. And here within my list of templates, I am going to click on edit. And once I'm in the edit mode, that's where I can expose the list of fields that I've added into the inventory item template. So because I already added the fields, I'm going to just click on add fields to get to the next steps. And you can see that the internal ID, the item vendor list has been exposed at the bottom. So you're going to expose the vendor code, the preferred vendor, purchase price. And if you need to add more fields to it, you can definitely add more fields depending on your requirements. Click on continue, click yes. And if you want to save the template, just click on save and enter data. And it's going to save it onto your list of CloudExtend templates. So now that we have the template loaded onto the worksheet, let's talk about the two different ways that you can update your vendor list pricing. So the first way is to have one item and add it to multiple different vendors. The second way is to have multiple items and add it within one vendor record itself. So let's go and demo the first scenario, which is to have one item and add it to multiple different vendors. So here on the template, you can see that I have one internal ID, and this is going to be the internal ID of one of the items that I want to add all the vendors to. But with this internal ID, I actually have a table right here where it says item search, and this is one of my saved searches. Internal ID is going to be for the item of 100 pack CDRs. So if I have that, I'm going to repeat the internal ID and then add all the vendors. And when it comes to this particular scenario, I added the internal ID of the vendors rather than name, because when I do an upload, having the internal IDs within the list actually makes the upload a lot faster. And because I have the internal ID, I actually use one of my other save searches that has all the IDs and internal ID and names of the vendors that I'm working with. So that's where I can get the internal ID for reference. And then when it comes to the purchase price, demo purposes, I'm going to just add 100 for all the different vendors that I have for this one particular item. So now when I go to upload to NetSuite, click on upload records. It's going to recognize that there's going to be a batch upload. And it's also going to recognize that there's going to be one record that is going to be updating. All right, as you can see, the internal ID for 57 in column B has turned green. And that's just the indicator that the list of vendors that I've added within this column has been added into this record for the item. And also the purchase pricing for all of the vendors have been added to the lines of that vendor list. So just to confirm, let's go into NetSuite to make sure that the upload was successful. And within NetSuite, I have the record open right here. And if I scroll down, I didn't refresh the page yet. So you can see that the vendor list still only has one vendor in the pricing. But if I refresh this, you're going to see that there's going to be 100 different vendors added within the list for the inventory item. All right, so now that we have refreshed it, let's scroll back down to the bottom. And let's go into the vendor list. And as you can see, it has 100 different vendors. Subsidiary is going to be dependent on the vendor record itself. And all the purchase pricing for the vendors are going to be that 100 that I've added inside of CloudExtend. So now in the other scenario, I'm going to have one vendor here in the vendor list, but I'm going to have multiple internal IDs in column B. I'm actually going to have 100 different internal ID for 100 different records. And now if I go into the vendor, I'm just going to copy one of the internal ID of the vendor. I'm going to paste it into that list right there. I'm going to right click and paste the value. Once I have the value, I'm going to repeat that internal ID for the 100 rows. And then when it comes to the internal ID of the item record, I'm going to go into my item table and copy all the internal ID there. So here I'm going to just drag down until I get 100 items. And I'm going to paste that into column B. And once I have that, I also have the vendor right here. The vendor code and the preferred vendor. That's something if you want to set as true, you can do that as well. But I'm going to leave those blank. And I'm going to go to upload to NetSuite, upload records. And then in this scenario, it's going to recognize that there's going to be 100 different records because there's 100 different internal IDs in column B. So just to confirm that it was successful, we can go into the vendor record this time and to confirm that all these items has been added to the vendor record. All right, so now that we're in the vendor record, I'm going to go into the information tab. And then under information, I'm going to go into item. And within the item subtab, you're going to see that all the items that we've uploaded will equate to that 100 with the multiple different pages for all the items that we've added to this particular vendor. So one additional bonus scenario would be that is, say for instance, you want to add more items to that one particular vendor that we just worked with. There is a way where you can add in the new items and append it to the list that we already have existing. So now I'm going to repeat the vendor internal ID 5 different times because I'm going to add 5 more items to the vendor list itself. So now for the internal ID, I am going to go back into my list of items, copy 5 different items, paste it into column B, and then the purchase price, demo purposes, I'm going to just keep it 100 as well. But one additional step, you do need to add in the value of false to replace all. And by adding false, you're basically telling the system that I'm not going to be updating or editing any of the existing items within that vendor record. I'm appending new items with the new purchase pricing to the vendor record itself. So now I'm going to go to upload and upload records. So once the record has been updated and added, we're going to confirm and go back to that vendor record and refresh it just to make sure that this new additional 5 items have been added into the list. All right, so now the internal ID has turned green. Let's go back into that vendor record and confirm that the additional total from 100 is going to add additional 5. So it's going to be totaling at 105. All right, we're back in the vendor record. I'm going to refresh the page. And once I refresh it, I'm going to go back into the item list to confirm that the total has been updated to 105. So go to information and under items, you're going to see that the total right here is going to be 105. Thank you for watching this video on how to manage your NetSuite vendor price list with CloudExtend. If you need further support, please visit our support site at support.cloudextend.io.